Hopes are up in Pittsburgh, and you know what? I agree, rightfully so. I like the Aaron Rodgers initiation this week in Pittsburgh. We'll talk more about that here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact, man. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL podcast, afternoon version called The Barbershop. And, man, we get it in here in the barbershop, man, and we talk about all of the things that are going on around the National Football League, and we will do that today with Chris Carter. Normally here on Thursdays, he's here on Friday. Matt has an appointment, but we got the Pittsburgh Steelers in the building this week to talk about all the things we need to discuss. All right, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets. That's wrong. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL. Make sure you hit up Game Time, man. Game Time's absolute truth. We'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later on. But today's show is going to be about this. Bryce Young turns the corner. We'll hit it in segment 3, right in the middle. Bengals taking bad too far. Whew, God, we'll hit that. I know Chris will have something for that. We're going to start, though, talking about Pittsburgh and how they have high hopes. And we want to shout out the everydayers that join us wherever they watch podcasts, listen to podcasts. We are here. Chris Carter from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And, of course, the great podcast called Locked On Steelers. It's been a busy, busy week for y'all up there, man. What's going on?
Has it been, Wig? Oh, my gosh. Like when Aaron Rodgers finally signed last week, I was like, thank goodness. And then I show up to the Steelers facility an hour before we're allowed to even check into the building because I want to get parking. And I'm glad I did because I did get parking. But I see Mike Garafolo of NFL Network. Yeah. Brooke Pryor is accompanied by like 20 more ESPN people. Sure. Every TV station in the Tri-County area it was insane. It was pandemonium, and everyone had questions for Aaron Rodgers. It was truly a spectacle. And like, look, it kind of was crazy because like even like the players and like even some of the local reporters who we're here every day, it was kind of like that realization, like, holy crap, that's Aaron Rodgers. Like that's the guy that's been like a name synonymous with best quarterback in the NFL for most of the past 20 years. And so it was a lot, but it was very interesting. It was an action-packed week. We got to talk to him. We got to talk to DK Metcalf. We got to talk to a lot of the Steelers about how those guys are fitting in and other things. And I do think that there is optimism about how this situation can work out. I think there should also be realism, put in that, but that's kind of where I always fall. I kind of, put it right in the middle of, the hopes that I think are actually attainable, the questions that could lead to bigger problems. But I think a lot of the people that are saying this will be Mike Tomlin's first losing season, I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be like that, man, because I've also heard that 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, 2019, and that's 5 years and it's never happened. So, if it happens this year, are you a genius or are you the broken clock that actually has still only been right once?
Yeah, we're gonna be right about it because we're gonna pull some more meat off of this bone, man, because this has been talked about. It finally happened, and then when it happened, it didn't really go down the way all of the naysayers expected. It's like, welcome home, baby. It's like Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers, those two kids running down the sidewalk about ready to hug each other. This dude's got my man Matt Williamson is gonna make a little bit of an appearance here though, because Peacock asked him a question. Y'all seen this clip before here on Locked On NFL, but Chris didn't because he wasn't here. So guess what? We're gonna play it. Here's a nice little question about Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers that we'll discuss as soon as you listen to this.
Even in his 40s, it's a better look now. As I'm paraphrasing you from just a few minutes ago, it's the best quarterback situation that the Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger was good.
Right.
Yeah. And probably better than late career Ben Roethlisberger.
I think so. Yeah, I'm expecting that.
Yeah.
And they've won a lot of games with these crappy quarterbacks in between,
Right.
Not enough. But
if you take a 500 team, but the Jets thought the same thing. The Jets thought they had a defense they're going to plug in this Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, one year was a torn Achilles on the first play, and then the next year, it just didn't quite work out for them. So I ask you, what's the expectations for the Steelers, and why would it work out better this year, a year older for Aaron Rodgers than it did last year in New York?
See, he asked Matt that question and he left it there because he left it there for us to answer. I'll give you it real quick in one sentence, because one team is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the other one is the New York Jets. That's why it's going to be different right off of the rip. And this is what you said. How's somebody going to say they're going to lose now when they've been having a whole bunch of quarterbacks and they ain't had a losing season since? It ain't going to start now, Chris.
They had a professional duck collar start a rookie undrafted professional duck collar from D1 AA come in, and they still didn't have a losing season. I really think that people underestimate how they could solve up a lot of problems. Now, again, I'm not saying the Steelers are Super Bowl contenders, and I will continue to say that until I see something that says otherwise. But I do think this is a team that sits right where it did last year, second place in the AFC North behind a good Ravens team that fights its way into the playoffs. And I think a big thing it'll be for it, does it get that 5 seed? Can they play the lesser of the division winners in the AFC and not have to go up against a juggernaut quarterback in their house and go on the road and pull off a very improbable win? If they get that playoff win, I think that everyone looks at this year as a success as far as building the foundation for it. But to Peacock and Williamson's point there about Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers arrived to New York, he was handed the keys to the city. They said, hey, here's $150 million over 3 years. Here's your picking coaches. Here's your picking players. Tell us who to add everywhere. We'll do whatever you want, Aaron, and everything's going to revolve around you. Aaron Rodgers, when I asked him about leadership on Tuesday when he arrived, he said, I want to be a servant leader. And he talked about being a guy that respects Mike Tomlin, being a guy, because he does respect Mike Tomlin. He says this guy's one of the best to do it in the NFL. And he respects the culture. He respects the organization, and he's still learning the organization. Heck, Aaron Rodgers didn't take a team rep all week long. They let Mason Rudolph still lead that because they wanted Aaron Rodgers to get acclimated to things. Aaron Rodgers is not going to be asked to be the savior of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not thinking he's coming in and he's going to win them Super Bowls left and right or anything like that. They think he's going to come in, be a good veteran quarterback, see the field for what it is, make better cerebral decisions than really they've had, ever. Because frankly, Ben Roethlisberger had a level of cerebral play to him, but he was more of a gunslinger in his best days. Whereas Aaron Rodgers is the guy that sees, they're disguising cover 2. Guess what? We're going to do the thing that counters that very well, that you're going to think we think it's cover 3, but we're actually attacking the middle part of the field. And then you're going to wish you weren't doing that. And that's the kind of stuff that Aaron Rodgers is going to bring to the table, but it takes time to get there. The Steelers recognize that. He recognizes that. And I think him and DK Metcalf could be welcomed new sort of maturity into the Steelers offensive side of the ball. They have defensive leadership. They've had defensive leadership for basically my entire adult life. But the offensive side of the ball, when they lost Ben Roethlisberger, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, the guys who everyone listened to in the locker room, they never replaced those guys. They tried to replace them with Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth has stuck around, but they need offensive leadership. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, is going to come in and provide the stability of, hey, I'm a veteran quarterback that knows what it takes to be good in the NFL, that knows how to capitalize on certain things. And that's what I'm going to do. And I don't think they're going to turn into an offense that chucks the ball, the third most times in the NFL. I think they're going to try to still be a balanced offense that runs the ball well, plays off play action. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers' play action numbers over the middle part of the field, an area that the Steelers have really been trying to exploit, but couldn't with Russell Wilson because of his height, that could be something that really turns this team into a more dangerous team than people expect. I think the Steelers, if you're thinking this is the year they're going to fall off and be last place in the AFC North for the first time since 1988, I would think again.
All right. Yeah. More Pittsburgh Steelers talk. We got to hit the Antonio Brown situation that is very, very unfortunate right now. We'll hit it at the top of segment 2. The main part of segment 2 we're going to discuss is the Bengals. And are they taking being bad too far? This is getting to the point where it's not even funny anymore with Cincinnati up there cutting up the way they're doing with this young rookie they have, their first round pick. We'll discuss that and more here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Those NBA finals are surprising some people. They're off and running, man. You need to make sure you can get in on that live action. There's nothing like sitting courtside for an NBA game, especially a finals game. I was also just on the app, and Zone Deals were offering 10% off exclusive Zone Deals for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. Man, are you kidding me? I love that I can see my exact view before I buy with zero surprises. And with Game Time Guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the guesswork out of buying tickets to live events and leave it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. I'm going to spell it for you. LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. It's going to be guaranteed. A quick note here before we get into the Cincinnati Bengals and all of their shenanigans. There's some unfortunate shenanigans. Allegedly, Dade County Police have a warrant for the arrest of former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown for attempted murder, I believe. Sad situation. We ain't the police. We ain't no investigators. We ain't going to get into too much of it. But since we were just talking about Aaron Rodgers, we got to keep in perspective when we talk about people being good and bad people, right? And we don't know the reasons, and there's all allegations at this point. Just coming back home with Aaron Rodgers, the worst thing he ever did was get on somebody's nerves. He didn't do anything like this. And I think we need to put that in perspective a little bit and hope that this thing turns out the best for everyone involved in the situation in Dade County. I've always said Antonio Brown, in my opinion, was one of the 5 best wide receivers I ever saw play. I'm pretty sad that this is ended this way, Chris. And I'm sure a lot of people in Pittsburgh are.
It's something that I said back in 2019 when all this stuff started going down with him, and he was like kind of seeming erratic, and he was throwing like gummies at the police and all this other stuff, and so many weird things were happening. And I said this back then while everyone found, oh, this is so funny. This guy's so crazy. Da, 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 da. I'm like, this isn't funny
at all.
This is going to end badly because this man is spiraling. He has a mental health condition that that no one is prescribing. No one is diagnosing. No one is helping. He has surrounded himself with yes men his entire life. And so there's nobody that I know that could check him, as far as like being like, yo, you need to stop what you're doing and you need to get some help. And this situation where apparently after a celebrity boxing event, according to the warrant, he took he got into an altercation, swung on a guy, took a security guard's gun and shot at the guy afterwards. That's according to what the warrant says, which is the warrant is official. He's definitely wanted for murder. Or attempted murder. Yes, wanted for attempted murder because he shot supposedly one of the bullets that he shot grazed the neck of the person that he was aiming at. So like he got very close to killing that person. I've been saying for a while, I think whatever happened to Antonio Brown, I covered this man when he was in Pittsburgh. I used to be able to talk him through like, hey man, I saw how you guys were setting up. The Ravens, they were coming out in man coverage, but you guys set it up and read their disguises. And we used to have these in-depth conversations about the game, about football, about all these things. And he could think through them. And we had, full, this man sounded like a competent person. And then I saw what he became after he left Pittsburgh and him, forcing his way out of the Raiders before he even showed up for a real practice or played a game, and then taking out even though he won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, the way he took off his jersey and threw it and just chucked up the deuces, and the way he sounds when you talk to him, and he just sounds incoherent all the time. Something happened to that man. Something, and look, this is not excusing. I'm not saying woe pity upon Antonio Brown, but it is a reminder that when you see someone spiraling, when we see someone that is not our entertainment. That needs to be a warning sign that someone needs to get that person some help. And I hope that if you see someone in your life that is acting erratically and you know them and you can reach out to them, do whatever you can, because you don't know how far their spiral might take them. It might take them to where Antonio Brown is like you. I hope that this works out for the best for all parties involved. If he actually did this, he should pay the consequences. And maybe that helps get him to shock him out of whatever situation he's in and gets him the mental health he needs. But clearly, Antonio Brown has fallen far from the superstar, beloved member of the Pittsburgh community that he was 10 years ago when I thought he was the most unstoppable force on offense in the NFL.
Well said, Chris. I had to give you that moment since you covered Antonio Brown. You talked to him a lot. Like I said, we ain't the police. We ain't TMZ. What we are, it's in the news cycle. We do talk about the National Football League. We've been talking about Pittsburgh for weeks now. And like I said, hopefully that turns out for the best for all involved and everyone can get help or justice, whatever is required in the situation. Cincinnati Bengals, back to football. They've been bad at certain things for a long time, but this is taking it a little bit too far. This dude, Shamar Stewart, that they drafted from Texas A&M, who I don't know, but I do know someone who coached him, who told me to watch him at the Senior Bowl. And the kid did exactly what we all thought. I can't imagine getting drafted and feeling like your dream that you always wanted is going the way that Shamar Stewart is going right now with the Bengals, because they won't sign him to a contract and give him basically a slotted contract that everybody gets with the normal raises that are in there for first round picks. I want you to listen to this kid, man, or listen to the guys from Locked On Bengals talk about how disgruntled he is, and we'll talk about him when we get back.
But as in how far I'll take it, I mean, it just depends. Like, in my case, I'm 100% right. I'm not asking for nothing y'all never done before. But in y'all case, y'all just want to win arguments than winning more games, in my opinion.
They did not expect to hear the kinds of things come out of Shamar Stewart's mouth that came out of Shamar Stewart's mouth today, really putting the organization on the spot as he continues to not practice over the team, attempting to establish a new precedent with their 2025 first-round pick.
Shamar Stewart is the youngest person involved in the negotiations with the Cincinnati Bengals, but somehow yesterday, with what I just heard, he sounded like the most adult, mature person in the room.
Supposedly, what the Bengals are trying to do as far as a new clause added to his contract is add a default clause that can void his future guaranteed money if like an injury or something happens. I don't have all the details there. Check out Locked On Bengals. They do a great job covering that team. But this is absurd. And not absurd from Shamar Stewart. This is absurd that the Bengals are doing this, are trying to do this, that they can't come to terms with their rookie first-round pick. I have never heard a guy who just a couple months ago was holding up the jersey with the number 1 with the Bengals and so proud to be like, because when guys go through all the things they go through to make it to the NFL, and you actually are a first-round pick, and you're like, mama, I made it. I got here. You're so excited to be there for the team that loves you, for the fans that are willing to embrace you. There's so much excitement built in everything. For all of that to become to not just a grinding halt, but just to be shattered because of how they're negotiating with him in a rookie contract that is so standard that, like, it takes nothing to get it done. It is so beyond me how the Bengals are messing this up and messing it up for a player they drafted to replace the other player who's a veteran who they can't come to terms with and won't show up for minicamp because Trey Hendrickson is tired of how they're treating him. And if anything else, it shows how much of a joke the Bengals of an organization have been, and it could be a terrible sign that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, that crew may never get the support that they really need to get back to the Super Bowl and maybe someday even win a Super Bowl. If this is how they're going to treat their players, I think it's ridiculous. I think Shamar Stewart has handled this admirably. He's been very professional in his responses. This is a guy who, when we get ready for the draft process, we look at relative athletic scores to see, like, how do they compare to everyone in their class. This man was a perfect 10 out of 10 in relative athletic score. He's tall, he's explosive, he's fast, he's strong, he's everything you want. And you won't give him the standard that Amarius Mims got last year? Okay, whatever, Bengals. You deserve what's coming to you with all this situation.
And one of the things I really don't like about it, Chris, let's just say you're the owner and I'm the dude that's in charge of director of college scouting or the personnel person. My job for you pay me to go find the best prospect for us, correct?
Yep.
So if I go get the best prospect for us, I did my job. And now you're going to double back and look at him and go, you better work out, because if you don't, you ain't going to get all your money. We're going to get it back. Doesn't that mean that you didn't trust me to do my job? Yep. They act like this kid was assigned to them. No, you scouted and chose him yourself. You chose him. But you're acting like You act like somebody dropped him off on the porch and say, I'll be back next week. Here's $30 for you to feed him all week. That's not what happened here. And to me, Cincinnati, the sad part about this, if you'd have taken the team away and told me somebody was going to treat a draft pick like this, I guarantee you, if you poll 100 NFL fans, they'll say, which team was it? You know who they're going to say did it? The Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say them. And just on time, here come Big Head walking in here and acting just like Cincinnati Bengals are supposed to act. I feel sorry for the fans. I feel sorry for the players. I don't feel sorry for Jake and James because that's content, baby. And they can just go ballistic with it. And fortunately for them, they get a lot of material. And unfortunately, the material they get from the Cincinnati Bengals is a little overwhelming. I'm going to talk about a team that I heard from. I was at our mini camp. My man Pete Briscoe, a friend of mine, was there. He talked about Tampa. I looked at him and said, is it what I think? He says, loaded. I'll tell you why Pete said that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. With my man Chris Carter here, lighting it up for y'all on Locked On NFL here in the barbershop. I'm on record saying that Tampa's going to be real good this year. In fact, the team that everybody talked about all last year in the NFC was Detroit. One of the things that I said on an episode, I believe it was in November, I said, everybody talking about Detroit. There's a sleeping giant, and ain't nobody mentioning it. There's one game behind them, and that was Philly. Well, guess what? There's one team that beat them both. And that was Tampa. Tampa also went to the wire, I believe, with Kansas City in a very, very close game. And they did it with their receivers hurt and banged up. And guess what? They got those dudes back. They lost a close game to Washington at the end of the season for the playoffs. But ain't nobody in that second round wanted to see Tampa Bay. Trust me, they did not want to. And I think Tampa's good this year. I want you to hear what Baker Mayfield says. This is courtesy of Locked On Bucks and my man James Yarko.
I do want to start with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, the Bucks went above and beyond to make sure that he has everything that he needs to be successful. He's got new weapons. He's got an offensive coordinator that he has a great relationship with. And of course, Baker spoke after practice on Tuesday about the offense. And he said, quote, if you look at the foundation that we tried to instill last year, we obviously evolved throughout the year and the season. So it's nice for guys to not have to learn it from scratch. There's obviously a few tweaks and things, motions that Grizz wants to get done, which is great. If you're not trying to get better, you're not going to survive. We're doing that right now. For me, it's continuing to over-communicate at the line of scrimmage. That was a big step last year. The responsibility at the line of scrimmage.
All right, so Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for the Bucs last year, is now in Jacksonville, and one of the things that he talks about is giving answers pre-snap. When you break the huddle, you come up to the line, you get answers pre-snap, and that helps the quarterback. The Bucs, though, are going against a trend, and that is actually being successful by having to replace your offensive coordinator each and every year when your head coach has a defensive background. That's a lot of stuff people want to avoid, right? Well, Tampa, they replaced Dave Canales with Liam Cohen, and now they've replaced Liam Cohen, but people don't expect them to fall off. So for all those people saying you need a head coach as a defensive coordinator because this will happen to you, guess what? It's happening to Tampa, but I still expect them to be very good.
I think they're going to be very good. I think they have a lot of talent on their team. They're also in a division that I think they can take advantage of. The Saints are a disaster. The Panthers, maybe they'll figure some things out. I don't know. And the Falcons, the Buccaneers should run away with the NFC South. And much like how the Bills are right now, they could be in a position where they get 6 divisional games, they win 5 or 6 of them. That props you up immediately in the standings. You can win your division, host a playoff game, and be high up. And then, hey, with the talent they have around Baker Mayfield, Baker Mayfield doesn't have to be the driving force. They have linemen on both sides that are pretty good players. They got playmakers on both sides that are really enticing. I think the Buccaneers could be dangerous. I think that could be a team to really watch out for. So certainly a lot behind that team right now.
It is, man. A team is good when they don't get heat for using a first-round pick on a cat that's their 4th wide receiver. And Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State right now is number 4 behind their rookie last year, McMillan, that came on at the end of the season, behind Chris Godwin, and, of course, Hall of Famer Mike Evans. I expect that Egbuka is the eventual replacement for Evans. But to go into the draft, having the luxury to take a receiver who's going to replace your Hall of Famer next year tells you how loaded this team is. And they also got Benjamin Morrison, who was banged up at Notre Dame. They got him in the second round. He ain't really done too much in camp yet or mini camp yet, but they expect him to be ready to go for training camp, and they needed secondary help. So good on Tampa. Quietly being that team in the offseason in the NFC that nobody's talking about except here on Locked On NFL. We mentioned Dave Canales. We also mentioned the quarterback trying to get it right, and Bryce Young has done that. To me, he has turned a corner. That happened at the end of last season. Why don't you hear Julian Council from Locked On Panthers talk about Bryce Young?
And we see out on Tuesday that competitive spirit, a different kind of Bryce, because it's not a Bryce that we'd have seen even last year, heading into last year's. What really matters is, do the guys believe in you? And they did not believe in him last year. And then he came around and they started to believe. He earned their trust. He earned their confidence and belief. And now, man, he's giving it back. And that's what you want to see, man.
That's a good story for a kid. That's a really nice. He's little, man. He's a tiny little something. And I was joking about, can he actually pull it off? I'm glad he's pulling it off. If you want to know what belief looks like, I saw it here in Jacksonville with Walker Little, the tackle who they gave a contract extension. I think belief has a certain look. It looks like confidence, and you can't fool your teammates. And when they see it, they'll follow right behind you.
Confidence is important. Getting the team behind you is vital. Need that with you if you're going to be the guy. I don't know if I'm ready to say.
I knew it was coming.
Really turned. I mean, I'm sorry, Wig. Like, I look at last year, and they won 2 of their last 3 games. The one game they didn't win. They got destroyed by the Buccaneers. But the 2 teams they beat in overtime, barely. It was the Cardinals, and it was the Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those teams were teams that I thought were anything special last year. Cardinals, literally finished 8-9. Both teams finished 8-9. So, like, it's not like he beat. It'd be one thing if he beat some teams that were like pushing, were real playoff threats or anything like that. And if he had a winning record, but he was 4-8 last year as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
He is 6-22 as a starter in his first years. His touchdown interception ratio is 26-19. Not that he can fix it, but I am not willing to say because he won 2 out of 3 games at the end of a 5-12 season that he has turned a corner. And I'm not at practice, so if Julian sees it and he's seeing it at practice, that's great. Because I liked Bryce Young in college. I thought he was a heck of a game dude. Game day, you wanted him to be swinging for you if you was Alabama. You wanted him on your side because he was going to come and bring it.
Yes,
but
sir.
I saw Kenny Pickett do that in college. He didn't do that in the NFL. And I'm not saying Bryce Young's Kenny Pickett, but I think that he has to prove a lot right now. And if he's earning his teammates' trust, that's great. That's awesome. Do that. But when the Panthers come out this year and they want to, they got teams that their first games at the Jaguars. They'll get to play you guys. You're the team that you cover in Jacksonville. They'll get the Cardinals. They'll get the Falcons. They'll get the Patriots. They'll get the Dolphins. They got a nice 5-game start to the season where if they come out and they're for real and they beat those teams, then we can have a conversation. All right, are they going there? But if they come out and they're 2-3, 1-4, 0-5. It's going to be a bad time because also David Tepper's that owner, and you and I both know, Wig, that man has no patience in his body. He can barely hold on to a coach as they're just simply going through a simple rebuilding process. He will flip things upside down. Bryce Young will be thrown into the wind, and they'll be back in the quarterback market sooner than we can blink.
I hear you, CC. CC just told me pump your brakes, Wig. That was the barbershop version of. I know it's Friday and you happy, but you need to relax a little bit. He ain't quite turned the corner yet. I tell you what, man, if you want to find out about these rosters, you want to find out who's going to make the 53, check out Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino because they are the best in the business. They might know your roster better than you do. I know they might know mine better than I do because that's their wheelhouse, man, and it can make you a smarter fan. Make sure you check out the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast wherever you get your podcast. Tune your butt in to Locked On Steelers, too, because Chris does a fabulous job. And check me out on Locked On Jaguars. Tyler Roll will be right back with you Monday morning. The Madman will wake you up like a shot of espresso here on Locked On NFL. You make sure you have a great weekend. We will see you next time here on Locked On NFL.